Arthur Lowell Dillon Gymnasium at Princeton University has echoed to the sounds of many Tiger stars of the past. It holds the trophies that Princeton men and Princeton teams have earned for their alma mater. Heisman Trophy, won by Dick Kazmaier. Ivy League basketball championships won by Princeton teams. During the 1964-65 season, you couldn't get seats in Dillon Gym. It was sold out for a year because the Princeton basketball team was that great. It was truly the year of the Tiger.
The year of the Tiger, voiced by Bud Palmer. That was who I also waited on once.
Who played for Princeton and the New York Knicks.
Yes.
Palmer,
yes.
Yeah.
I was so thrilled. Yeah. And he lived down the street from my wife, too, in Connecticut when she was a child, like Bud Palmer. But I waited on him. Who didn't I wait on? It's unbelievable. You just got to write about what they ate and how much.
At Germantown, they always said you'd be a great waiter someday. So.
That's exactly right. Tim, Paul, you should go to Princeton. Tim, you should be a waiter.
Bud Palmer was my first wife's stepfather.
Really?
All world, yeah. He also was one of the founders of Vail Associates. Yeah, Bud was an incredible guy. His father was Lefty Flynn, and Lefty Flynn was a famous cowboy movie actor. That was Bud's.
That was his father?
Yep, Lefty Flynn.
Wow, that's so funny. I love this small world.
I wanted to say something,
yes.
Not a backhanded, but a direct compliment to Paul for, among other accolades and accomplishments that he has, and he deserves so much. But I think he did a wonderful job with this book because it's very difficult. A lot of people really don't understand that whole Philadelphia WASP. By the way, for people that don't know it, WASP was coined by Digby Bautzel, who was a neighbor of mine in Radnor, and he taught sociology at the University of Pennsylvania, and WASP means White Anglo-Saxon Protestant. But he's the one, as Paul will tell you, to put that on the map. But the thing about Philadelphia is, for instance, here's an example. When I lived in Santa Barbara, people would think nothing of coming up to me and saying, "What did you pay for your house? How much do you want to sell your house for?" Well, the way I grew up and the way Tim and Paul and all of us, you don't talk about money. You would never ask somebody how much they paid for their house. You know what I mean? It's just certain things you just don't do. And I think people make a mistake sometimes thinking of when they say old money. I always say old money is no money, which is pretty much true for a lot of
times the case.
A lot of our families are that way. I'm not rich, I never was, but they've been there for a long time. You had people like the Dorrances and Fitz-Dixon and
Campbell Soup people.
Campbell Soup, yeah.
Soup people, yeah. But by and large, Philadelphians, I would venture to say, in a defensive way, are not snobbish. They are not over the top pretentious. If anything, they're probably, for the most part, provincial. A lot of them don't go anywhere except either down the shore, down the shore, or maybe up to Maine, or they go to Florida to Palm Beach. No, not Palm Beach. That's for New Yorkers. But Philadelphians, I think, because of that Quaker ethic, and Paul brings this across beautifully in his book, are kind of low key, and they're not showy offy, and they're basically good people. I just wanted to get out of there because I knew I wasn't going to be the stereotypical Philadelphia lawyer or stockbroker or whatever. And so I went to Hollywood because I couldn't do anything else. But Paul captures it beautifully in that book. It's a lovely, lovely book and a great read for anybody, whether they're from Philadelphia or not. It's sociological commentary.
Absolutely. And I've given the book to a lot of people, and they all say the same thing. Like, this was a great read, really interesting. And it's a quiet, it's not a loud expose. It's not even an expose. It's just a historical sort of recollection of where it all came from. Did either of you guys ever go to a debutante party?
Oh, yeah, many.
Well, Sam would have been Mr. Debutante.
I was, yeah. We'd go to, there was a period there in the late 50s, early 60s where you'd go to a brunch and you'd have Bloody Marys and you'd drink too much at lunch. Then you'd go home, take a nap. Then you'd go to either a tea party or a full-blown debutante party with a Lester Lannon orchestra, 40 pieces, and people like the DuPonts and the Pews, who owned Sun Oil and whatever. I mean, they were extravagant parties, even in those days. They probably cost, in the late 50s, debutante parties probably cost $50,000 to $100,000 for one party for one evening. And I will just tell you one quick one. I was at a debutante party in Chestnut Hill at the Sunnybrook Golf Club. Paul knows this. Right in 1964, before I graduated from Temple, I wasn't trying to be an actor or anything. I was dancing with a girl, and her name was Meg Davis. And I'm not going to tell you who she was until the end, but she said, "Sam, you're going to Europe this summer." I hear, "Yeah, you got to call up my aunt." I said, "You're kidding." She said, "No, I want you to call her up." I got this phone number. I got over to the south of France when I was jetting around Europe. I went to Monte Carlo and I called up, and I was invited up to the palace. And I spent 3 nights and 3 days with Her Serene Highness, Princess Grace. It was Meg Davis.
That's Grace Kelly for us regular people out
Grace
there.
Kelly. And I walked in, and
Ocean City.
Yeah.
When I went to the palace, I was petrified. I didn't know how to act. I walked in, and she comes out. She's in this sort of aviary, and she comes in with gardening gloves and shorts, and most beautiful woman I've ever seen. And I said, "Oh, your Majesty," and she said, "Sam, knock it off. I'm from Philly too."
Good for her.
Exactly what she said. Can you imagine?
There's a great picture of her on the set of High Noon, and she just looks from, I don't know if you've ever seen this picture. You can find it. It's her talking to Zinnemann, the director, and Gary Cooper, and she's in these khaki pants and white Adler socks, if you remember them, and Basswegian loafers.
Yeah.
And it's just like you realize, yeah, she was a woman from Philadelphia who made it into Hollywood, but that Philly girl is that Philly society girl is so clear in that picture of just the casual look of what she's wearing. Sam, you weren't at that crazy bachelor party with the Wanamaker family.
Yeah, I was. I was Fernanda's escort.
Oh my God! No wonder they rioted.
I didn't go to the house wrecking party because I didn't have too much to drink, but I had a stomach ache and I went home. I just didn't go to the after party. And actually, it wasn't really it was in Life magazine, and our pictures.
New York Times, yes.
And they took pictures. It was they blew it out of proportion. I mean, it was basically an empty house, and somebody swung on a chandelier. Bill Pitts was his name, and they broke a few windows, and that was it. But the district attorney of Suffolk County was up for re-election, and he made a big deal out of it. You know, we're going to really get back at all these society people. Yeah. So it became
it's a classic Vanity Fair story. So let's get Paul back into this. So Paul, quickly, the basketball book you wrote, I have to say, I was going to leapfrog to this question. I was thinking about my favorite Philadelphia memories, and I've asked both of you to chime in, but I'll jump in because one of them involves the Palestra, which was my brother and I were there the night Calvin Murphy scored 52 points, which is still the scoring record. But tell everybody, it's hard to explain without, for me, I get so not emotional, but just like, you can't believe this place, the Palestra. Tell everybody a little bit about your book and about that era of Philadelphia basketball.
Yeah, well, the Palestra is the home court of the University of Pennsylvania, and it's really a living museum. It's where the basketball, along with Madison Square Garden, excuse me, was really started and established in the 40s and 50s and into the 60s. And the reason I wrote the book is people don't realize when they think of Ivy League basketball, Princeton, Harvard, Yale, and so forth, they think of small time, not really that competitive. But between 1965, when Bill Bradley arrived at his senior year at Princeton, and 1979, Princeton and Penn were in the Final Four. The Ivy League was much more like the ACC. The teams were as good as Duke or North Carolina. Yes. In fact, they used to beat Duke and North Carolina on a regular basis, and a lot of the games were played at the Palestra, and you had the 5 teams from Philadelphia: Temple, Penn, and LaSalle, Villanova, all playing there in rivalries, and so it was just
It's
it's really
unbelievable.
the center of the basketball universe, along with Madison Square Garden.
But every Wednesday and Saturday there would be a Big Five doubleheader.
Right.
You know, it was just crazy. I think their tickets were $2 and just so much fun. You could take the train right to 30th Street Station. So we're getting short on time here. I wanted to ask both of you your favorite Philadelphia foods. Anything come to mind?
Well, I was just down the shore
Yeah.
last weekend, and I had something that I can't get in New York. I live in Bronxville, New York, but I had scrapple.
Yeah, Scrapple's I'm ordering some on Goodbelly because and I turned my son-in-law onto it. It's just like the minute people try it, it's either the greatest food they've ever eaten for breakfast or the worst. But it's and don't ask what it's made of because it's literally the scraps on the floor.
Yeah. Similar to sausage. Pennsylvania Dutch sausage is
yeah.
one way to describe it.
And Sam, how about you? Is there a memory or a great Philadelphia memory for both of you? That question. I brought up Calvin Murphy. Anything come to mind? Sam, you mentioned your farm in Radnor.
Yeah, that was, I mean, probably my fondest memory when I look back over my 80 years, you know, I mean, I just always go back to being on the farm as a little boy for the first 12 years, you know, because it was just, we had, you know, fields of clover and sheep, and we'd go out and play with the cows and we had cows, sheep, chickens, everything. And Radnor then was rural. It was farm country.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I mean, it's still beautiful, but the same thing happened in Bucks County. These developments like Deer Landing get built, and it's like the only thing a deer ever landed on was the hood of a car.
Yeah, I could have that happen up there.
Paul, anything jump in your mind? Like you live in Bronxville, anything like when you think Philly, like your best memory? Probably Franklin Field with you.
Yeah, that was it. Also romantically, I went out with Beth Federoff during my high school years, so that was my best romantic memory. Morty, Sam knows Morty Federoff, Beth's older brother, and she was Dave Lawson described Beth as being looking like Julie Christie, only more beautiful. So
wow. I'm going to have to break out my brother's yearbook this weekend and look at her so I can see that.
Timothy, I just want to mention about scrapple, which is my favorite too. And of course, soft shell crabs or hoagies, cheesesteaks. But I believe if you check at the Montecito market, they used to carry scrapple because there was somebody, I don't know who, from Philadelphia that used to have it sent in there.
Yeah. No, it's just Goldbelly now, which I have no problem ordering. They also have Bassett's ice cream, so I get some of that too. Anyway, guys, Sam Chu and Paul Hutter, thank you so much for joining me today. This was really fun. I want to give one last plug to Paul's books. Sorry. The first one is called The Last Philadelphia Gentleman, kind of about Sam Chu, in a way. The Sunset of an American Ruling Class. And his second book, The Golden Age of Ivy League Basketball. If you like college basketball and like the history of that, it's a great period in college basketball, from Bill Bradley to Penn's Final Four. Sam, get your book written. America is waiting.
Okay, I will, Tim.
Okay. Thank you guys so much.
Great to see you, Tim.
Great to see you. Thank you. And we'll see you and hear you next time on It's Radio with TV's Tim Stack.